Right, so it's the next day. I've just found this pot that I'm going to put the maple in. I've just filled it up with some soil, put some sphagnum moss around the top which will help the roots to grow. So it's just a question now of transferring the tree. Let's just knock off some of that soil. Put a couple of tying wires in to tie it in. Now because it's a round pot, you don't have to worry about what the front of the tree is. Just going to sit it in the pot nicely. And we'll bring that up through the middle of that root there. Bring that up in through that gap. And we'll twist. Right, let's grab some pliers. So, sitting it in the pot. The way to do this is to pull it tight. Twist close to the trunk, and then you pull and twist to tighten it up. So, pull, twist. One more should do it. Pull, twist. Right. Yep, that's going in the pot. Perfect. So what I might do now is I was just going to fill it around the edge, then I'll put a little bit more sphagnum around where these cut roots are, just to help promote some more root growth. So we've got quite a big gap around the edge. So just fill that up to the level of the roots. It's nearly enough. Right, so just fill that in a little bit. Right, so as you can see we've still got some root showing there, so I'm going to put some sphagnum around there and then finally put another layer of soil on top. So I've already got the sphagnum in some water. So the easiest one to use. Get a rake, that should do it easier. Now, I use this trick for when I do air layers as well, because sphagnum is a natural antiseptic. It promotes root growth, which is what you want. So what I'm trying to do is get a higher root base nearer the trunk, so that next time I pot it I can chop more of the base roots off, because as you saw from yesterday's, the roots were going down to the bottom of that very long tall pot. So it's a question now of reducing the root mass over the next few years and getting a much flatter, tighter root plane for it. So that should be in there. One more down there. Right. So basically what I'm looking to get is, if we take that as an example, that's how deep the root base is at the moment. So because the roots came out in the old pot, they went straight down to the base of the pot like that. I've chopped half of those off so far. So now I've got that depth of root. I'm really looking to halve that in the next couple of years. So we'll give this a couple of years of growing in this pot. See if we can get some lovely surface feeder roots on the top, and once we've got enough root there to sustain the tree, we'll cut all the other really thick roots off. So just use the rest of this soil in this bucket to fill in there. Turn it in around the edges. Right, what I tend to do with my trees, I normally leave a good well on the top so that when I water I can fill up the space between the soil and the rim of the pot. Then that allows that just to soak down through. So I'll go through and water about 10 trees at a time, fill it up, let it soak through. By the time I've done the 10th one, I come back to the first one, do that again, and that gives me a good reservoir of water in there. Right, so what I might do is put a layer of gravel on top of there. I haven't got any gravel at the moment. I'm going to have to go and buy some. Well, there's a small amount there, but I don't think that's going to be enough. So yeah, that'd be the only other thing I would do, would be just to give it a little top dress of soil, of gravel, just to neaten it off a bit. Akadama is another one that I would use. Sometimes I just put a layer of akadama on the top, and then when that dries out, that gives you a good idea that the tree needs watering again. Have I got a sack of akadama handy? Have a look. Yes, I have. Right, so what I might do is just give it a layer of akadama. That should be enough. By the time I've spread that out. Okay. So that's another indicator of, say, when it's dry, it's that colour, a light colour, and then when it gets wet, it goes a dark brown colour. So when that colour, when the dark brown turns to the light brown, you know it's dry, and it's a good indication that the tree needs watering. Right, I'm just going to pause it there for a moment while I move the pot out of the way of the background, and then we'll start on the pruning. Right, well, use that little break to go and make myself a nice flask of coffee, because it's quite cold out here today, so I'll be having that soon. Right, so I've got this up on the turntable now, so you're just going to go through and take off all the strong growth, any growth that's grown in the wrong direction. They're a bit stiff. Just testing these branches, as I say, this isn't, well, it hasn't been my tree for very long. I don't know the history of it. Look, it's a broken branch now. So it's a bit of a learning curve on this one. So let's get some scissors. Get a pair of side cutters. And get a pair of knob cutters. Right. So I'm not going to do any drastic changes to the style of the tree at the moment. I'm just going to go through, and all these dead stubs, we'll take them off. So let's start here first. Let's see what we've got. Right, so that comes right up to the edge. That one that's going straight up is a little bit strong and it's not exactly the right thing to have, so that can come off. Get that dead stuff out of the way. Right, so even though these two are growing backwards, I'm just going to shorten that one, take that one out. That's going to be enough for that section there. I'm just going to get a small pot of water. Right, so with the cuttings that are coming off, what I might do, especially with something like this, I might try and root that and get another tree from it. So just to stop it from drying out, I'm just going to put them in that pot of water as I cut them. Just put them in there, and then later on today I'll have a look, see what we've got, and decide if any are worth trying to pop. It's always a good idea when you first start. When I first started, nearly every single piece of wood that I trimmed off the tree, I would try and propagate with. Even if it was the wrong time of year, it was all a learning curve. You don't know until you try anyway. So in those days, I had very little horticultural knowledge. You can read the books, but it doesn't compensate for experience. You learn a lot more by making mistakes, your own mistakes, than you ever learn in a book. Like every bonsai artist in the world, I've killed plenty of trees over the years. Whether it's been a new species that I haven't worked on before and didn't have the right knowledge, or just pure inexperience, doing the wrong horticultural practice at the wrong time of year, things like that. So something like the very first wisteria I ever had, I knew nothing about wisterias, just knew that I liked the look of them. Didn't realise that there were 2 times of the year where you would trim them. You normally trim them in sort of August time, August, September time, and then again in January. Fruit prune once for the shape and once for the flowers. I didn't understand that at the time when I first had my very first one. Consequently, I had it for a few years. It never flowered because I was doing the wrong thing with it. I might leave that one on actually. Take that one off the back. But these are the things you learn as you go along. It wasn't until I went to a nursery in Southampton in England, where the lady who ran that said to me, I get 2 flushes of growth or flowers on my wisteria each year. And when I asked her what she did, she told me how she pruned it. And from that little piece of advice is how I learnt to prune wisteria twice a year. That's going to be a nice little one to do. So it's all a learning curve. Nobody ever knows it all. What works for one person in one part of the country might not work for somebody who lives in another part of the same country. So all different microclimates around the place, you have to adapt to what you do. I have very big trouble trying to grow pine trees in this garden. It doesn't matter what I do with a pine tree, it never likes the conditions in my garden. So I've only got one pine tree left of my own. That's going to be the last pine tree I ever own. There's no point buying trees that you know aren't going to survive in the conditions that you live in. It's like buying a tropical tree and trying to grow it outside in a temperate climate, because you leave it out in the winter, you're most surely going to kill it. Tropical trees for England are grown indoors, and the problem with growing trees indoors is you have to try and keep the correct conditions. So as soon as you put the heating on in the winter, you're asking for trouble. If you put it too close to a source of heat, i.e. a radiator or fire or something like that, you're going to dry it up quickly. If you're not there to mist it 2 or 3 times a day, that can cause problems as well. So all I'm doing at the moment is just thinning out the branches. You've got quite a lot of branches that are interconnecting and going against each other. So what I want to try and do is induce some crack budding. Like that one, I might try and do what's called a heel cutting with that one. If I can get in there, I can pull that backwards, just snap it off. There we go. Right, so that's what's known as a heel cutting. Let me just put it against this background for you. So you can see this long piece is the heel. So all you need to do with that when you're potting that is just trim up the small piece like that, take that edge off there. So into some hormone rooting powder, into a pot, and with a bit of luck that's going to grow into a nice little tree. So back to where we were, let's have a look. So we've got too many branches there. Let's take that one off. Come off. Right, so I've got a problem here on this branch. There's no buds on the outside of the branch, but I've got 2 on the inside and 1 on underneath. Hopefully that one that's underneath I can train out that way, but these 2 are interfering with this branch, and the one from this branch is coming across and interfering with that branch. So in theory they need to come off. I'm just looking to see what I can do with the other parts of the branch first. Yeah, so certainly that one can come off. That one's going to have to come off as well. I'll leave the one underneath. I'll try and train him that way. The branch is a bit stiff to twist, but these ones on the end I can twist and probably slightly bring them out a bit, so that's okay. So we'll take off the ends of that one, take off that one. Right, so that's going to be wired and twisted horizontal. That's going to be a fairly substantial piece of wire. And what I haven't done is got the wire cutting out. So luckily I've got 3 different wire caddies, all with different grades of wire on. So this one should be what I need. I'm just going to put that there. Right, so we take that one there. Put the snips. Yeah, about that much. Right, so just miss that one out. Right, I'm going to take the gloves off. Right, first thing to do is to securely anchor that on there. But because I'm going to try and twist the branch, I put the coils fairly close together to give it more tension. I wire them a lot closer than I would if I was just ordinarily wiring a branch. This comes back down the other way. And a little trick when you're using a thicker wire on a very thin branch, as I am here at the moment, it's easier to use gin pliers to twist the wire with a little bit of help from your fingers, rather than trying to twist the wire around the branch like you normally would and end up snapping the branch. So I should really be using a thinner this wire on this end piece, but because I've got this here now, it will work. Just got to be a little bit careful. As you can see, the pliers, you twist the wire as so. Just slowly twist that round. And again, when you want to just grab hold of the wires itself, you can manipulate the branch into the position you want it. Right, that's going to do for now. I'll do that in small increments. I don't want to do it all today. I'll let that rest for a couple of weeks, get it used to being there, then I'll just give it another little tweak a bit later on. As you can see, it's bringing that into a more of a parallel plane. Don't want it exactly parallel, but you know, that's going to help with the overall design. So now this branch is interfering here, so I'll take off the end of that, and that gives me those two, which again I can hopefully twist with a bit of wire and bring them more into a horizontal plane. So it's going to be easier, I think, to go to the left and then take one of those branches off. Got a bit of scar under there. That's why I took the heel pattern. Right, so I'm not going to do that. That's a little bit weak there, so I'll leave that for another time. I'll wait until that's healed over. Right, so I'm just going to take the end off of that. So the intention with the way that I'm doing the pruning today, the intention is to get this sort of effect here where we've got these two buds back budding. Hopefully, I know it's very old wood here, but if we could get something a little bit further down that branch, and again there, it'd be lovely. We've got a few little bits of back budding up here, which are going to help. And we've got these very close buds to the end of here, so we could take some of the end growth off up there, but we'll get to that eventually. I'm going to take off this one here. So we've ended up, on the end of this branch, we've got 3 nodes. So you only ever want 2. You get 3, you're going to start to get inverse taper at some time. So because that one's growing in the wrong direction, that can come off. Potential to be a cut in that one, so that's good. Yeah, we'll leave that as it is for now. Right, let's go up here, get rid of some of this dead. So all these dead bits are from last year's prunings. It's always a good idea to leave a length of wood on for dieback. These long pieces also help to protect the buds in the winter. They take the first brunt of the frosts and just help protect the inside of the tree, I found. Yeah, so that's going to be out. And what you don't want, obviously, if you get a sharp frost and the tree's out, you don't want the buds getting caught by the frost. That just puts the whole tree back in the spring. So right, so as you see, we've got back bud in here, we've got back bud in there. This is going to be a really good one because that's going to give me a branch in between the 2 branches which are there. And then this is going to be a nice branch to make as a new leader. This has got some quite heavy wire scars on it, on this branch, so when we let this one become the new leader, this will just be I'll let that grow all this year without really pruning it back, just to give it some thickness and some vigour, and then either next year, either late this year or next year, this branch will be able to come off, and then we'll be able to redefine that area of the tree. Right, here we've got a classic example. We've got a nice thickness of branch there with these thinner ones, but this one here has been allowed to grow too long. It's got a much longer internode than we want. It's straight, there's no interest in it. It's also interfering with this branch here, so that can come off like so. But the good thing about that is that's going to make a nice cutting, so hopefully you might get a few more trees out of it. I normally find with maples probably about 25% of any cuttings you do take. I don't use any heat on mine. I know if you use bottom heat you'll get far better results. I don't do that. I just chance my arm, try it and see. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's not really a problem. I'm not looking to propagate my collection. I've got enough trees as it is now. In the early days, as I say, I used to propagate everything and anything just to try and get a bigger collection, but I've probably got 200 trees now, which is more than enough. Sometimes it's too many, especially when you want to try and go on holiday and get somebody to look after them for you. Consequently, I take all my holidays in the English winter, so once the trees have gone dormant, but that obviously restricts the places in the world where you can go. So, right, so that's okay. Let's take that dead piece off at the top. Put it in the middle. There we go. Right, so the top is, as most trees, is the most dominant part of this tree. And you can see from here you've got a very straight piece and another straight piece and another straight piece. It's where all the energy has gone straight up the middle of the tree. So this piece I'm going to take right back. This long piece I think I'll go right back to the buds that are coming out. Let's take off that dead piece. We've got two branches coming from the same position there, but again we've got very long internodes. So I'm going to have a closer inspection, see if I can see any breaking buds. No, not there at the moment. Let's get rid of that. Right, let's just do the bits that are obvious first. Right, so we've got buds there, we've got buds there, they can come off, that can come off. This one could be the new leader, or the one behind it. Right, I'm going to take that off. There are two buds there, that can come off, and both of those. Right, now we need. Right, so this branch is pretty thick, pretty set in its ways. This one's going to interfere with it, so we'll take that one out. This one can come into the space here. Just a question of whether I take this off completely and start a new leader from one of those other points. I might just leave it as that. I'm not familiar with the way this tree likes to grow, so I think if I err on the side of caution for now, I'll take that off. Take that off. Hopefully that's going to give us some more back buds as well. Let's just go back. I think I'm going to go back to one bud on each of those. Let's have a look here. There's no bud showing there at the moment. There's no bud showing there. Doesn't want to come down. Right, so I might try and bring that down at some stage. I think we'll take off that dominant branch there. Give those a chance to produce some buds. Right, so I'm thinking for long-term planning, looking at this area here, again, where this bud's coming out, you've got this very long, boring stretch of branch. So that branch will come off. But what I want to do is just leave the end growth at the moment, so it draws the sap to the end of the branch. So it's going to bring energy along. It's going to help this bud to grow. It may produce a couple of buds elsewhere, which we can use in the process. So rather than cut that off straight away and only have the energy going to this bud, I can see there's another bud at the back there, and there's one right in the crook of the branch there. That's going to give me a couple of options to bring another branch in. So I'm going to leave that as it is. This one around here, again, this in the long term is going to be the leader of the branch. All of this is going to go. And that way it gets rid of all of that scarring as well. Brings back the internodal length, which is good. But at the moment, as I say, the tree's quite sparse. It's obviously lost some branches in its life. It's lost one here. There's a big wound there. There's a big wound there. There's 1, 2. So if I count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's had at least 11 branches, 12 with that one. So there's at least 12 branches have come off of this tree. So it's either through design or accident. This would have been a very large branch, and so with this. This was obviously to bring in taper and make a new leader. That would have been the original leader going up there. But that's a very old scar. That's nearly completely filled in. So that must be 20 years old at least. Then again, these ones up here, these would have been to produce new leaders. And again, this one is completely healed almost. This one is as well. So I think that's enough for today on that one. I'll give it a chance to put the first spout of growth on so that we actually get the full leaves out. We'll have a look at that when it's in full leaf. We'll be able to judge whether these buds are going to be useful. So there's a few buds that I can see which are going to have potential for giving me more branches. If some of the cuttings take, then what it's going to give me the option to do is obviously graft branches where I want them. So if this was a rooted cutting, for instance, if I've got no branches there and I wanted one, I could certainly do an in-arch branch graft there, or on the other side, bring it out that way depending on what I want. Again, with these areas here, you can put branches wherever you want at the end of the day, as long as you've got the technology to do it. Something like this you could use as a whip branch graft. So what you would do is you would drill a hole straight the way through the branch, and then before the leaves come out, you would insert that through the hole. This would stay attached to the tree, hence the whip. You would then let this grow inside the tree, and once this side is thicker than this side, you know that this side has grafted itself into there. You can then sever this side and take that branch off, or leave the rest of the branch to grow wherever you want. So that may be a technique that I'd use later in the season. We may see something that needs a whipped graft or other sorts of grafts. So I'm quite happy with that now. As you can see, this lower branch has had a big chunk taken off of it. That could be a possibility to graft a branch on there to give us a bit more style there. So that's it for today on that one. I'll go around and just put some lac balsam on the large cuts, and that's it for today for this one. Thanks for watching.